Each will speak for no more than 7 minutes, and then half the time, the second half of the time, will be reserved for Q&As. Thank you, and Ambassador Amadov, welcome.
Thank you, Bill. Do you hear me well? Is it okay?
There's that music.
You know, I would like to start saying big thank you to the Turkish-American Alliance for having all of us here for this very impressive and very useful event, I think. This convention is not only a good venue for knowing better the countries of Turkic area, but also just to deepen the relationship which each of the country has with the United States. So I think this is a great forum just to do that, and Kazakhstan embassy support wholeheartedly this kind of event. Let me start saying that Kazakhstan's destiny has been determined by geography, and you know, geography actually shapes our foreign trade, energy, as well as developmental policies. History placed Kazakhstan in the heart of Eurasia with all its challenges and opportunities. We embraced that reality, and to become a bridge between Europe and Asia, connecting East and West, North and South, we gradually implement the multi-vector policy. Multi-vector foreign policy proved to be very efficient for Kazakhstan in its geopolitical settings, and we today have quite a good and friendly relationship with all our neighbors and beyond. That helped us to have a policy of sustainability, of predictability, which serves us well up till now, and we hope will be continuing to do so in the future. You know, the spillover effect of economic crisis in the world and changing nature of international relations determined Kazakhstan's decision to reconsider the whole set of its foreign economic as well as domestic priorities and put it all in one strategy, 2050, which was quite recently unveiled by President of the country, Nursultan Nazarbayev. This strategy is a long-term vision for development of Kazakhstan and getting it into the 30 developed countries in the world. So Kazakhstan's foreign policy for 21st century, it is the policy of economic development with win-win scenarios for all the stakeholders in the region. We all know that democracies, world democracies, they have one common denominator, and this is a market-based economy. Well-functioning markets play a critical role in building broad middle class, strong civil society, rule of law, and independent, effective judiciary. We are, and we has been, and we are building our market-based economy, and we are having the goal of building a strong middle class in the country with vibrant civil society, which today are maturing their ability to influence the political process in Kazakhstan. We are for getting to the stage when we will have the same conditions, the same situation in Kazakhstan as in many other civilized and developed countries. We stand for constructive discussion with all the structures in the society of Kazakhstan to upgrade our achievements in economic and political, social fields. Still, I cannot be hiding that we have still some deficiencies in our development, but we are sure they are just pains of our growth. The strategy 2050 is devised specifically to overhaul all these problems which we have to build a strong civil society in the country, prosperous economy, and to have a developed country in the future. Therefore, we very much appreciate the strategic partnership we have with the United States because we work today on many aspects of bilateral relations with the United States. We appreciate the commonality of values, commonality of goals, and commonality of approaches to the world and international politics. Actually, because of this, we institutionalized our relations in the Commission of Strategic Partnership, which was launched last year. We care about security in the country, in the region, and globally. We see our role as a trade and logistics hub, just as it was during the Great Silk Road. That's why it's no surprise that Kazakhstan fully supports the new Silk Road initiative, which was proposed by the United States, because we would like to transform Kazakhstan from a landlocked to a land-linked country, which allow us to serve as a land bridge between Asia and Europe. Together with the United States, we promote regional cooperation, nuclear security and non-proliferation, encourage constructive engagement with Iran, promote security and cooperation with Afghanistan, in particular through the Istanbul process, of which the next ministerial meeting will be held in Almaty on April 26. We hope that the drawdown of ISAF forces will be accompanied by scaling up of international engagement in Central Asia. Kazakhstan, on its part, is supporting U.S. with air, rail, and other means of transit. We are the only country in the area which has pledged $2 million in support of Afghan national security forces. We are very much interested in stability in Afghanistan. And stability in Afghanistan, I think it's not only national priorities of Kazakhstan, but it's the security priorities for all of the countries in the region as well as the key players in the world. We don't want to see Central Asia as the arena for a new great game, because we would like to see it as an area of great gain, a place where interests converge rather than collide. We think there is no need for a zero-sum contest there, but what we need in this area is win-win situation for everyone. And we, Kazakhstan, is very much for that. We would like to work on this goal. As for Iran situation, I would like to say that we also contributing a lot to the constructive dialogue from the Iranian side. And we think that our example of the country which actually renounced its nuclear weapons could be quite a good example for Iran, which shows that if you denounce the nuclear weapons, you are not becoming weaker, but you can become stronger through economic development and prosperity. Coming to the economic development of Kazakhstan, I would like to say that Kazakhstan is one of the success stories in the region. We have grown today into the 5 fastest growing economies in the world. The country's vast natural resources have made Kazakhstan's economy the largest by far in Central Asia. We steadily grow our qualified workforce. Starting with difficult 1993, Kazakhstan, under the resolute decision of President of the country, has been sending its bright students to the best universities in the world under the full stipend of the government. Today, actually this year, we celebrate 20th anniversary of this program, which is called Bolashak, it's future. And we increased the number of students who we are sending abroad to 3,000. By this way, we're making sure that we will have a prepared workforce to meet the challenges of the 21st century. In a short historical term, from the moment of gaining independence in 1991, GDP per capita has increased 16 times, from 700 to 12,000 US dollars. The World Bank included Kazakhstan in its list of the world's 20 most attractive destinations for investments. Over the past 20 years, Kazakhstan has attracted 160 billion US dollars in investments. This represents over 80% of total FDI inflows in Central Asian region, and the highest volume of FDI per capita in the area and beyond. But we understand that the privilege of prosperity comes with responsibility. That's why Kazakhstan is working on establishing the Kaz-8 agency, which will channel large-scale technical assistance to the Central Asia countries and other developing countries. According to the United Nations data, in 2006-2011, out of total 53 million in Kazakhstan's foreign aid project, 30 million of it was sent to the development and as a development and humanitarian aid to Central Asian states. This made Kazakhstan the third largest aid donor in the region after the United States and the European Union. We support not only our Central Asian neighbors, but Afghanistan as well. And I would like just to mention here that we launched a 50 million educational program for Afghan students to study at Kazakhstan's best universities. And it is the third year that we are having the Afghan students to study in our universities. And it shows quite a good progress in that area. We are optimistic about Kazakhstan's joining the WTO, and we are finalizing our negotiations with that international body. The talks are going on right now. Kazakhstan also created the customs union of Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Russia. That is the economic union without changing the political affiliations in the country, so in the area. The idea of establishing the customs union was to have a unified commodity market with a population of 170 million people, plus having the unimpeded movement of capital, people, and products among the countries. If we talk about US, I would like to say that the bilateral trade and economic relations is increasing. US is one of the largest trade partners of Kazakhstan. The volume of commodity turnover today stands at 2.5 billion US dollars. From 93, gross inflow of direct investment from the United States to Kazakhstan economy amounted to over 23 billion US dollars. Many of America's largest private companies has made significant investments in production of and transit of oil and gas and other areas in Kazakhstan. Since the panel is talking about energy issues, let me just tell a few words about the Kazakhstan energy sector. with nearly 40 billion barrels in reserves and 2% of global production, the country occupies the world's ninth place in proven hydrocarbon reserves. And we are among the 20 largest oil producers. In the coming years, the country can play a greater role in helping to meet the world's increased demand for energy. Full development of our major oil fields could place Kazakhstan to the world's top 5 oil producers within the next decade. Having said that, I just would like to underline that Kazakhstan recognizes the common interest of energy suppliers, consumers, and transporters in promoting global energy security. That's why we stand very firmly for having a bilateral and multilateral beneficial relations between the countries which supplies and those who are consume the energy resources. We understand that the hydrocarbon reserves are not infinite, so our main goal in the future, for the future, in energy sector is to shift the economy towards sustainable green growth. And this is our national priority. This is already fixed in our new strategy for 2050. This is our long-term development goal in the 21st century. By 2050, we are aiming at having alternative and renewable energy sources to occupy at least half of the country's total energy consumption. In this regard, I would like to mention that in 4 years from now, Kazakhstan and its capital Astana will, for the first time, host Expo 2017, its exhibition, which will be done under the theme Energy of the Future. Green economy, solar, wind power, alternative energy sources, all these are the technologies of the 21st century, and we would like to have all the countries to showcase their technologies in that area to help the developing world to find the cheapest ways of producing the energy in the energy-thirsty areas. Actually, we see that as a essential part of our policy of advanced development, of advanced economy, and we will be working in that area in cooperation with other countries and the US in particular. Just in my concluding remarks, I would like to once again to say that this forum is very helpful to expand our relationship, to deepen our understanding of the region and the process going on there. So we will, I once again would like to thank Turkish Alliance, American Alliance for having this event, and looking forward to good discussion during our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. That was a very thoughtful presentation, and you provided a lot of factual information to set the basis for discussion today. Dr. Weitz.
Yes, thank you very much. The ambassador actually touched on several of the points I was going to make, so that will allow me to shorten my presentation somewhat. I want to thank the Turkic Convention and the audience for inviting me and coming to hear me. I thought I'd talk about the nature of the U.S.-Kazakhstani strategic partnership, how mutual beneficial it's been, and how it will continue to remain a vital component of international affairs as we go forward. We know the history. The United States was one of the leading proponents of supporting the new development of the new Kazakhstani state, helping to develop its energy industry, particularly oil initially, and so on. And then the partnership has gone from there to strength to strength. As the ambassador mentioned, Kazakhstan has managed to go through some difficult times, but achieved a remarkable transition from a plan to a market economy for the most part, to become a country that was dominated and exploited by Moscow to one is now a fully independent state, able to have throw its weight in world affairs much greater than one would anticipate given its short history and a difficult geographical location or challenging geographical location. It is in the process now of struggling with the transition from originally a one-party dominated communist authoritarian country to a more pluralistic society and state. In terms of economics, it's become the natural leader, I would argue, of the Central Asian countries, thanks to its energy resources, dynamic economy, and skillful entrepreneurs, some of which we're fortunate to have with us today. As the ambassador mentioned, it's now making the important transition to go beyond hydrocarbons, to develop other natural resources, develop green technologies, develop high-tech industries. It's partnering with the United States and other countries, Japan, Korea, to move forward in these directions. It's become one of the world's 50th most competitive economies. Largest economy in Central Asia, remarkable increase in per capita GDP, almost 20-fold in 20 years. We've now got the emergence of a strong middle entrepreneurial class, which is driving the transition from basically moving Kazakhstan as a driver of regional economic dynamics. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on the energy and economics because you've got better experts here. But in terms of energy, it's quite clear if you look at the projections, it's going to make one of the largest increases in the non-OPEC supply of oil in the next 10 to 20 years. The regional influence, it's very interesting. The ambassador mentioned the multi-vector foreign policy. I would argue that Kazakhstan has been more successful perhaps than any other country of the former Soviet republics that's been able to maintain good relations with Russia, which is essential given their lengthy shared border and shared history and shared fate. Developing very good ties with China, particularly in the economic realm, and I think that will expand to other areas, but also staying strong relations with its neighbors, the United States, Europe, and others. Its achievements were noted and built upon and reinforced by its receiving the chairmanship of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe in 2010. It achieved something I didn't think it could, and I don't think most people thought it could, which was managed to get all the countries to agree to hold one of the rare summits of the OSCE in Kazakhstan at the end of 2010. That same year, Kazakhstan played the lead role in helping the Kyrgyz Republic recover from its domestic difficulties. I think Nazarbayev himself was personally crucial in helping manage the transition. It happened that when the crisis started to develop, President Nazarbayev, President Medvedev, and President Obama were all here in Washington, D.C. because of the nuclear security summit. And the two people, the one person that the two other presidents, that is Obama and Medvedev, could trust to save the situation and help transition to the regime transition achieved smoothly was President Nazarbayev. He played a crucial role in helping orchestrate that transition. Ambassadors touched upon the importance of Afghanistan and Kazakhstan's role there. We often hear that, country X, that 70% of the northern distribution network, that is, the goods that the NATO countries send to their troops in Afghanistan through Russia, through the former Soviet republics, goes through country X, 50% goes through country Y. By my calculations, 100% of what goes in goes at some point through Kazakhstan. So that's one in itself a testimony to how important the relationship has been. And what's also remarkable is the Kazakhs don't highlight that. They don't come to me, well, if it wasn't for you, you wouldn't be able to persist in Afghanistan. They're not like that. Some of the more recent achievements is this Istanbul process, the ministerial meeting. The ambassador mentioned that Kazakhstan is the heart of Asia, and that's basically the framework they're using for the Istanbul process, which was launched November 2011. Regional cooperation in the heart of Asia involves many of the local countries as well as some international organizations. There have been several ministerial meetings. It's basically an effort to have an Afghan-led regional dialogue to promote to address some of the efforts in the region, the security challenges, and it reinforces the vision of the New Silk Road, and hopefully Secretary of State Kerry will see to it to attend what will be the culminating ministerial meeting next month, which will help drive the process forward. In terms of the region, I think it's important to highlight the fact that Kazakhstan is a natural driver of regional integration for several considered reasons. Security reasons, like Korea, it's surrounded by great powers. It has great relations with all of them. But any country would want to reduce its dependence, and that's why it's trying to work with other partners. Economics, Kazakhstan is now transitioning to sending out its businesses and capital outside its country, so it wants to be able to take advantage of larger markets. Ideologically, President Nazarbayev committed to several things. One is eliminating nuclear weapons, another is regional integration. And then lastly, if you look at the wider region, Kazakhstan's about to enter the World Trade Organization. It had a very successful chairmanship of the Organization of Islamic Conference, promoting its moderate version of Islam and promoting dialogues with other civilizations, helping to integrate Central Asia's interpretation of Islam with those of others. And the CICA, the Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building in Asia, is now helping to transition some of the benefits we've seen in the OSCE region from that process into Asia. So hopefully, as we go forward, Kazakhstan and the United States can work in partnership since our goals are so harmonious in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weitz. Next, Islamberk Saljanov is an intrepid businessman. He has a company in the logistics services business in Kazakhstan.
Доброе утро, уважаемые дамы и господа.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Я рад приветствовать участников ежегодного Тюркско-американского конгресса, в частности, данной панельной дискуссии, посвященной Казахстану.
It is my pleasure to greet the participants of the annual Turkic-American Convention, and in particular, this panel devoted to Kazakhstan.
Я также хочу выразить признательность модератору этой сессии, господину Уильяму Кортни,
I would also like to pay respects to our moderator, Mr. William Courtney,
который не понаслышке знает о нашей стране и внес особый вклад в становление казахстанско-американских отношений на заре нашей независимости.
who knows Kazakhstan firsthand and has greatly contributed to the establishment of the Kazakh-American relations at the dawn of Kazakhstan's independence.
Наш посол господин Умаров рассказал о перспективе Казахстана, его политике и экономике в качестве государственного деятеля.
Our ambassador, Mr. Umarov, has laid out Kazakhstan's prospects, policy, and economy in his capacity as a public official.
Я хотел поделиться своим мнением и ответить на все интересующие вопросы с позиции представителя деловой элиты одной из стран тюркского мира.
And I would like to share my vision and answer any questions from the perspective of business elite of one of the countries of the Turkic world.
Я считаю, что данный форум имеет важное значение для сближения и развития партнерства между странами тюркского мира.
I strongly believe that this forum is of great importance for bringing together Turkic countries and for developing partnerships among them.
Который имеет большой потенциал на сегодняшний день и Америкой.
It has a great potential for our development today and for the United States as well.
Поднимает такие актуальные темы для современного человечества, как энергетика, торговля, развитие. Тюркско-американский альянс вносит большой вклад в процесс объединения и сотрудничества народов.
raising such challenging issues for the modern humankind as energy, trade, development, politics, the Turkic-American alliance significantly contributes to the interstate level process of integration and joint engagement of peoples having Turkic roots.
имеющие тюркские корни, которые проводятся на межгосударственном уровне.
And all of this is taken on the international level.
Казахстан с особым энтузиазмом и ответственностью относится к деятельности Тюркского совета, межгосударственного объединения академий, которые находятся в Казахстане, и Тюрсой, международной культурной организации, объединяющей 14 членов.
Kazakhstan, with distinct enthusiasm and responsibility, participates in the Turkic Council, Intergovernmental Association, the academy of which is situated in Kazakhstan, and also Turksoy, international cultural organization comprising 14 members.
В 2012 году Астана была выбрана культурной столицей тюркского мира.
In 2012, the capital of Kazakhstan, Astana, was chosen as a cultural capital of the Turkic world.
С октября 2012 года по январь 2013 года в музее первого президента Казахстана в Астане прошла выставка «Тюркский мир».
From October 2012 till January 27, 2013, we held an exhibition called Turkic World at the Museum of Kazakhstan's first president.
Я возглавляю группу компании «Алтын Кран», основная деятельность которой сосредоточена на транспортной и спедиторской услуге.
I am the head of a group of companies called Altyn Kiran, which is focused on transportation and forwarding services.
Компания начала работать с 1993 года.
We have been working since 1993.
Это было трудное время зарождения бизнеса в Казахстане.
This was a difficult time for initiating business in Kazakhstan.
Рухнула плановая экономика, а рыночная еще не стала на ноги.
The state-planned economy collapsed, and the market economy was still at the embryo stage.
Когда не было ни государственных программ поддержки бизнеса, ни адекватного банковского финансирования.
There were no state programs to support entrepreneurship, no adequate banking financing.
Когда многие не знали, с чего и как начинать.
People did not know where to start,
Где и у кого обучаться основам бизнеса.
where to learn business basics.
А сегодня ситуация совершенно иная.
And today we have a completely different story.
Разработаны и реализуются различные государственные программы поддержки предпринимательства.
State programs are supporting entrepreneurship and are being developed and have been implemented.
Выдаются льготные банковские кредиты, предоставляются субсидии и гранты.
Banks offer soft loans. One can easily receive subsidies and grants.
Появилась целая плеяда успешных отечественных бизнесменов, на которых можно равняться и при необходимости даже опереться.
We have a whole new generation of successful businessmen who can serve as an example and support for others.
Есть много казахстанских зарубежных колледжей и университетов, в которых молодежь может получить знания в области менеджмента, маркетинга и основ предпринимательства.
There are now many domestic and foreign colleges and universities that provide young generations with knowledge in management, marketing, and entrepreneurship.
Уверен, что взятый в самом начале нашей независимости руководством страны курс, вначале экономика, потом политика, полностью оправдал себя.
And I'm strongly convinced that the initial direction of our government with the motto first economy, then politics was the right one.
Сегодня мы успешное государство, имеющее свое лицо, свои особенности и свою позицию.
Today we're a successful state with our own characteristics, our own identity, and our own politics.
Мы первые на постсоветском пространстве формировали современную модель рыночной экономики, основанную на частной собственности, свободной конкуренции и принципах открытости.
We were the first in the post-Soviet territory to develop a modern market economy based on private property, free competition, and openness.
Сформированы базовые условия для предпринимательской деятельности и современная налоговая система.
We have established basic conditions for entrepreneurship as well as a modern taxation system.
Доходы казахстанцев выросли в 16 раз за 15 лет, что не имело места за такой короткий промежуток времени ни в одной стране мира.
Over the past 15 years, the incomes of our citizens have grown 16-fold, which has never happened in any other country in such a short period of time.
Казахстан обладает большими и крупными запасами нефти и газа мирового уровня и ни на шаг не будет отступать от своей политики и надежного стратегическое партнерство и взаимовыгодное международное сотрудничество в энергетической сфере.
Having world-class oil and gas reserves, our country will not depart from its policy of reliable strategic partnerships and mutually beneficial international cooperation in the energy sector.
Я кратко обозначил те моменты, которые имеют отношение к тематике нашей встречи.
I have only briefly touched upon those issues which are relevant to the session's themes.
От себя хотел бы предложить Тюркско-американскому альянсу проводить больше мероприятий с ближайшими представителями бизнеса США и тюркских стран в целях налаживания контактов и взаимовыгодного сотрудничества.
Personally, I would like to suggest to the Turkic-American Alliance to hold more events aimed at bringing together business circles of the U.S. and Turkic states in order to establish strong contacts and mutually beneficial cooperation.
Как член Президиума Национальной экономической палаты Казахстана Союза Атамекен готов предпринять усилия для привлечения этого союза к сотрудничеству и участию в деятельности Альянса.
As a member of the Presidium of the National Economic Chamber of Kazakhstan, called Union Atameken, I am ready to facilitate this union's engagement and participation in the activities of the alliance.
Еще одна тема, которую я хотел бы затронуть, это необходимость введения социально ответственного бизнеса, высшая ступень которого спонсорство и меценатство.
One more issue I would like to mention is the need for greater corporate social responsibility and sponsorship and patronage.
Теперь я готов присоединиться к интерактивному обсуждению и ответить на вопросы как гражданин и патриот Казахстана, имеющий большой опыт в предпринимательстве.
And now I'm ready to join the interactive discussion and answer questions as a citizen, as a patriot of Kazakhstan, with vast experience in entrepreneurship, small, medium, and big business.
Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, Mr. Seljanov. Dr. Cohen.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Courtney. I always learn so much from you on our trips and working with you in Washington. It's a pleasure to share the podium with my colleagues, especially with Ambassador Umarov, who is new as an ambassador, but not new in Washington, and we wish you best of success. And last but not least, thank you for the organizers of Turkic-American Alliance. I think they're doing a terrific job, especially the President Faruk Taban and Kamal Aksuz. And now to the subject matter. If I told you that Kazakhstan is a primary player in Eurasia and Eastern Hemisphere in the oil business, I would not tell you anything you don't know. The question is, what are the achievements until now, and what is the outlook for the next 10, 15 years? The achievements are very impressive. In the 90s, it was the American companies that led the development effort in Kazakhstan. Chevron, Exxon, and others developed very large fields. They also developed CPC, the Caspian pipeline system to Novorossiysk, and allowed export of Kazakh oil for the first time, not just to Russia, I mean Novorossiysk is of course in Russia, but to the world market through a consortium that Russia does not control. Furthermore, it was a strategic and geopolitical change in the region when Kazakhstan built, when Chinese built a pipeline in Kazakhstan to export Kazakh oil to China. And as we joked in this city for a long time, happiness is multiple pipelines. It creates competition and drives the prices up. Today, Kazmunaygas is focusing on its role as an oil and gas producer, not as a regulator. The ministerial reform is focusing the ministry as a regulator. Kaztransoil is managing a vast network of 5,300 kilometers of pipelines. Kazakhstan has become self-sufficient in gas and has a large capacity of exporting gas. The question is how these additional volumes of oil and gas that are coming online with Kashagan and Karachaganak fields coming online are going to be exported? And the answer is they're going to be exported in the multi-vector way through expanded CPC, through expanded China pipeline in terms of oil, but also by tanker across the Caspian to the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline. And here the role of Turkey as a transit country is, of course, extremely important. Kazakhstan could build a pipeline across the Caspian, but so far there's no political decision, there's no political commitment to connect to Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan by the pipeline, among other things because of the status issues of the Caspian Sea, because Russia and Iran object to it. So while the world is in the beginning of a trend of transition to non-conventional oil and gas sources, shale oil, shale gas, oil sands, etc., Kazakhstan has a future for now as a conventional producer. The prospecting for non-conventional energy in Kazakhstan will come, trust me, but it's not today. Now, in terms of geopolitics, it becomes more complicated very fast. First, we're facing the withdrawal of NATO and American contingent from Afghanistan in 2014, increasing the chances for instability because, just follow me with the following scenario, and I hope I'm wrong because it's not a pretty scenario. If the Taliban overruns Afghanistan, and if the Taliban, after overrunning Afghanistan, has a spillover with Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, with other radical organizations, then Central Asia may become more unstable, and with Uzbekistan facing transition in the near future, it will have a security challenge. Kazakhstan is in a better position because it's further north. It has a strong security and military establishments, but nevertheless, we already saw small incidents of terrorism in Kazakhstan, especially in the oil areas. We also saw social discontent and protest in which, unfortunately, people got killed. And this may be a harbinger of future problems. The second major trend in terms of geopolitics in Central Asia is that for now, China was pretty happy to outsource security to the Russians and to NATO, but concentrated on economic development. If you tabulate, if you make a table of all the investment China puts into roads, railroads, mines in Central Asia, including Afghanistan, you will be impressed. If you look at the plans of China building the transportation infrastructure, what the Americans nicknamed the New Silk Road. Americans are very good at marketing, at branding, but these days we're not as good with financing. So the Chinese are financing our concept of Silk Road for their own reasons. And the reasons are to move huge amounts of manufactured goods to Central Asia, but beyond Central Asia, to the ports in Pakistan and Afghanistan and ship it from there. And this is a slow, deliberate, systematic plan of economic expansion, and sooner or later, when you have a critical mass of economic assets, you come and protect it. And that means a competition with Russia in the future in the security area as well. So for Kazakhstan, that followed the multi-vector policy very wisely, I think the challenge is, as it moves into the Eurasian Union and as Russia asserts its privileges as the leader of the Eurasian Union. 85% of the staff of the Eurasian Union are Russian, and the headquarters for now are in Moscow. Kazakhstan is requesting that headquarters will be in Astana. Now, in terms of the West, we are living in an era when the demand for oil in the West is flat, the economic growth in Europe is flat, and hopefully will not decline further. The United States is moving towards more reliance on North American resources, domestic US, Canada, offshore, shale, sands. So we do not have the urgency to focus as much on Eurasian oil and gas for domestic consumption. Of course, the oil companies, the super majors and others want to continue being in business, but that becomes more and more difficult as the Chinese are eating our lunch. They're also eating the Russians' lunch in terms of eating the lunch, meaning they're winning the bids. It's an expression. So to wrap it up, as the chairman indicates, I do believe that Kazakhstan has some challenges, not just foreign but also domestic. The rule of law, transparency of the economy, fight against corruption, orderly political transitions. These are all challenges that are facing Kazakhstan in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe 15, but these are surmountable challenges. Kazakhstan has developed elites that are capable of strategic tackling, strategic address of these challenges. Kazakhstan is, in my view, the most strategic country. You heard about the 2030 program, the 2050 program. Kazakhstan looks into the future and plans actively for the future to be a more prosperous country. I cannot say it about all the neighbors in the region, and hopefully they'll look at Kazakhstan and learn something. And in terms of the relationship with the United States, and thank you, Turkic-American Alliance, for keeping these relationships with Central Asian countries on the map. We need to work twice and 3 times as actively, because with the pivot to Asia, the current administration, I think, and with the reset with Russia, the current administration downgraded relationships with Central Asian countries, with the Caucasus countries, with Eastern European countries. And for those of us who believe that these are strategically important parts of the world, for Turkey, for the US, for the Europeans, we need to work together to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. We will transition now from one of the biggest, most thoughtful strategic thinkers in Washington to the leading expert in Washington on energy in our part of the world, Julia Nene.
Well, I will try not to repeat too much because Ariel did cover quite a bit of ground on the energy sector. I work for PFC Energy, which is a consultancy based here in Washington, D.C., but I spend a fair amount of time in Kazakhstan. And I was in Aktau recently, which is a city in the western part of the country. And it always reminds me when I travel to Kazakhstan just how vast this country is. It's hard to imagine that you have a country of 16, 17 million people that is the size of Western Europe. And then you think about governing a country like that and making sure that all parts of this country are satisfied in terms of energy, in terms of building people's livelihoods, creating a middle class. It's a daunting challenge. And I have to say that one of the things that I was just mentioning to the ambassador is that it's quite admirable because Kazakhstan recognizes its place being between East and West as an important country, North and South, but that it is the sole country in this region that is really determined to educate its young people, send them abroad. It's not afraid to send them to American universities, and it has begun just recently teaching English as of the 1st grade in schools. So it is making sure that the children that are growing up today in Kazakhstan can integrate into the global world and the global workforce. And I think it's good preparation because as you look at a map of this country, and if you get familiar with the energy sector of Kazakhstan is really in the west of the country. That's where most of the oil and gas production comes from. And of course, the population is in the southeast and in the north central part of the country. And so essentially the production in the country, which is largely exported, is now finally going to be connected more into the populated centers of Kazakhstan as well. It is a country where the two refineries are actually located more towards the east, and in fact, because the population centers are such that in one case, Astana, the capital, it's actually closer to Russia, that there is going to be energy trade between Russia and Kazakhstan to satisfy the domestic needs of the country. It's been very difficult to build the infrastructure that connects the west to the east. It's expensive. But Kazakhstan has very wisely worked with both Russia in terms of the export pipeline that is its main export route that goes out in the western part of the country to the Black Sea and Russia. But then in terms of China, it has a second export pipeline for oil, and it will eventually have an export pipeline to gas. I think those of us in the energy industry who look back on these last 5 years or 10 years and look at what some of the surprises have been. Well, clearly one of the surprises is unconventional energy and the development of that, and particularly when it comes to the US. But the second surprise is the growth of demand, that China is really a driver for oil and gas demand. And the beauty of Kazakhstan is that it actually does sit by this market, which is the growing to be the largest consumer along with the US of energy, and will need imports. And Kazakhstan is the country, other than Russia, which also shares a long border with China, that can satisfy this demand. And as a result, the interrelationship between Kazakhstan and China on oil and gas has grown. Chinese companies are fairly important investors in the oil sector of Kazakhstan. They also produce associated gas, and they will help Kazakhstan build a gas pipeline that will connect the western part of the country to the southern consuming areas around Almaty, which is the commercial capital of the country, and then eventually link it by an export pipeline into China for exporting gas, but that's a ways off. In any case, I think for anyone that hasn't traveled to Kazakhstan, it's definitely a country that's worth going to. I've been amazed by Astana, which is the capital that has been developed since 1997 into a modern, thriving city. The last time I was there a few months ago, I was surprised at how much it had changed, even from the 6 months before. It's constantly being built up, and it's a very modern and interesting city to go and see. So hopefully more investors, and certainly Turkish companies are active in the country, will come to Kazakhstan, not just in the energy sector, because as the ambassador said, it's time to start diversifying away from oil and gas also, and create a vibrant economy of the future for a country that sits in such a critical position in Central Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Let me ask those of you who would like to ask questions to begin moving to the microphones. There are 2 microphones. Please state your name, your affiliation, and then ask a question, hopefully a brief question. While people are moving, let me mention that Turkey's role in Kazakhstan is hard to overestimate how important and how positive it is. At the very beginning of Kazakhstan's independence, President Özal was the first chief of state to visit Kazakhstan. Turkish Airlines was the first airlines to come to Kazakhstan. Turkish trucking and construction companies were the first non-energy companies to blanket Kazakhstan and the rest of Central Asia. In fact, the initial American embassy in Almaty was reconstructed by a Turkish construction company. Turkey initially, though, got its hopes up a little too high. Let me cite two examples. When President Ozal came in May 1992 to Kazakhstan, there was a big reception in a diplomatic reception area in Kazakhstan, and for the first time, satellite television from Turkey was turned on so that Kazakhstanis could see it. Kazakhstanis were stunned that they couldn't understand it. So the gap in language is an issue. Second, within the first year or so of Kazakhstan's independence, Turkey invited leaders of Central Asian countries to Turkey for a meeting. After the meeting, President Nazarbayev told the press, "We did not lose one big brother to the north to have it replaced by another big brother to the west." In some respects, that was kind of a low point, I guess, psychologically. But over the last 20 years, what has happened is that Turkey's role in Kazakhstan and the rest of Central Asia, but especially in Kazakhstan, Turkey's role has been incredibly positive. Turkey has played a very important balancing role for Kazakhstan, helping give Kazakhstan more room for maneuver between Russia and China. So in some sense, both Turkey and America have played balancing roles that have been helpful to enable Kazakhstan more easily to pursue its multi-vector foreign policy that the ambassador referred to. And Kazakhstan and Turkey have been good role models for each other. Initially, of course, Turkey was the role model, but they are two of the most dynamic countries economically in that entire part of the world, and both have benefited very much from the relationship. The Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, of course, was focused on Azerbaijan, but Kazakhstan has benefited from that as well. So looking forward, it's hard to underestimate the importance that Turkey will play in the future of Kazakhstan, and increasingly Kazakhstan will be playing a major role in Turkey as well. Questions? Please go to the microphone.
Good morning. My name is Kemal Bayolo. I'm the resident scholar on the Middle East, North Africa, and Islamic Studies at the National War College, and I'm currently on loan to the State Department. I want to kindly ask Mr. Cohen and His Excellency the Ambassador Umarov about the Russian influence in Kazakhstan and whether that relationship, the Russian-Kazakh relationship, has impeded or helped relations between Turkey and Kazakhstan.
Let me just say that, repeat that we have a multi-vector policy, and of course we try to develop good neighborly relations and good friendly relations with all the countries in the area and beyond it. Russia is an important partner of Kazakhstan. We have the longest border in the world with Russia, and of course we have a common history behind us. And today, when we became independent, of course, our main goal is to build our economic, political independence. And for that matter, we are working with Russia on these lines. Of course, it's sometimes difficult. You know, habits are very stable, you know, and very strong. But we are developing quite good relationship with Russia, and creating this customs union, it helps us to bilaterally develop beneficial relations in economic sphere. So I would say that with Russia, we today have quite an amicable relations. Ambassador Courtney mentioned about our relationship with Turkey. We are very much grateful to our Turkish friends and brothers for their help in the initial years of our independence, because really Turkish companies were the first to come to Kazakhstan to help with infrastructure development, to help us with building roads, building hotels, bringing services. And that was quite an important help at the time when other countries were still weary of coming to that part of the world. And that was very important for us at the very beginning, at the very first stages of our development. How relations with Russia help to develop the relations with Turkey? I would say that today we live in a very globally close world, you know. We are globalizing, and that's why each and every country plays a very important role in the world. There is no any direct, probably, connection between that, but through having the multilateral discussions, through multilateral programs of political, economic nature, we achieving the necessary balance in the region, in Kazakhstan. You know, Turkey and Russia are the members of different regional organizations. And just for example, Istanbul Process, this is a organization which right now building confidence between the countries and Afghanistan to assist the reconstruction process in Istanbul. And both of these countries there. We have Turkey today willing to join the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This is another area of cooperation very critical for the region. So by this kind of cooperation within multilateral bodies, helping to create a conducive atmosphere within the region of cooperation, of friendship, I think that's the way we are seeing the role of both Russia and Turkey in Kazakhstan. That's what my comment, and I think Bill could add something.
Dr. Cohen?
Well, first of all, I'll point out that Russia and Turkey had very good relationship for the last 20 years, including very active role of Turkish construction companies in Russia, including massive Russian tourism in Turkey, and all that, and of course, energy, oil, gas, nuclear, 4 very expensive reactors that your government commissioned from Russia. Now, it changed, of course, with Syria. And I think that for now, that disagreement is contained. They agreed to disagree on Syria, but anything that involves spilling of blood, and some people say proxy conflict, because Russia actively supports the Assad regime, including with weapons, and Turkey supports the fighters. If that remains contained, then the relationship will be correct. If this escalates, like we saw with the plane that was landed in Ankara, then we'll have to re-examine it. In terms of Russian position in Central Asia, I refer to Russia taking care of security primarily, the historic soft power that is based on language, media, training of the bureaucrats, training of the security services, training of the military. This is still formidable connection. I don't think Turkey trains nearly as many state players. Private sector, yes. High schools in some places where it's allowed, but not security services, not military officers, not diplomats, not economists. Beyond that, because you're a fellow academic, I'll refer to you to a forthcoming longish piece, and in Washington 20 pages is long, on the Eurasian Union that will be published, inshallah, probably in the next couple of months by my organization, the Heritage Foundation, that I've been working for about 6 months on, and then you and I can have a good conversation about it.
And it'll be posted on your website?
And it will be posted on heritage.org under my name.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. One of the most promising younger scholars of Kazakhstan in the United States is Adina Shok from Georgetown University.
Thank you for that. Yes, hi, I'm from Georgetown and also here with Central Asia Newswire. I wanted to pick up a point Dr. Cohen raised on that China is eating America's lunch with the new Silk Road project, but historically, China was a major part of the Silk Road, you know, Tang military outposts, et cetera, and in response to the Americas' repivot to Asia, China's leading foreign policy scholar wrote an article in the fall of 2011 with his March West policy of Chinese promotion of investment into Central Asia and the March West. So I was wondering if, you know, from the perspective of Central Asian states or even geopolitics, I mean, doesn't China have a natural role in this region, or what's the role of Chinese investment, not just in rebuilding pipelines out of old Soviet scrap metal, but really making strategic investments in this region? I mean, does March West make sense, and is that an idea Central Asia is receptive to?
Thank you, Ambassador, for letting me try this first. First of all, how many people live in the Soviet Central Asia? Let's say 60 million? That's smaller than the majority of Chinese provinces. When we use the word near abroad, no, we don't use it, the Russians use it. When the Russians use the word near abroad, they think about an area that they militarily conquered 150 years ago. The Chinese were in this area for over 1,000 years. Over 1,000 years. There's sculpture, there's art, there's literary evidence of how long China influenced or received tribute from these areas. This is not to say that history repeats itself. Somebody said that history repeats itself first as tragedy and then as a farce. But look at objectively, as the Russians would say, look objectively at the economic growth, the ratios of economic growth, GDP economic growth of China. 7.5% is low, double digits sometimes. Russians, when it's 5 or 6%, it's a great achievement, comrades, when the oil prices are high. And then it's, if you calculate Russian economic growth sans without energy, it is 2%, maybe 3%. It's still an emerging market. There's still pent-up demand for housing, for automobiles, for travel from the Soviet times, but it is an emerging market of 2 to 3%, slower than Brazil, slower than India. So in the long term, while I do not diminish the Russian soft power that I mentioned before, you go to Kazakhstan, they're not watching Chinese TV, they're watching Russian TV. But 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when the new generation comes up, and they were not as influenced by Russians, they grew up not with Moscow as a capital, but with Astana as a capital, with Tashkent as a capital, their attitude is going to be more multi-vector, and their business partners are more likely to be Chinese rather than the Russians.
That may be true, but the young people will be watching Downton Abbey. Our last question. Oh.
Well, my name is Halil Akıncı. I am the Secretary General of the Turkic Council that Mr. Saljanov was kind enough to mention. Now, I will not be asking questions. I intend to provide you with some additional information. With respect to transport, we have committees on transport since its foundation in 2009. The Turkic Council has been convening committees on transport, and Caspian crossing is a priority. First, for the bilateral trade among us, we have 4 members, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. And secondly, we would like to attract the transit trade from Northwest China. So it's one of the important topics that we focus on. Probably the next summit, which will convene in Azerbaijan, will be with the theme of transport. Secondly, about business, we have a business council, and we will be delighted to see other partners to join us in our activities. One political issue, you mentioned inequality, that a brother is replacing another brother, but the Turkey Council is an organization based on sovereign equality of countries, and this is not only in theory, it's also in practice. Every state has a veto power. Finally, with respect to Russia, when Russian television asked me about our relations with Russia and what our intentions, my answer was very short, brief. I said, we all have good relations with Russia, and we do not intend to spoil it. But if another factor interferes, it will not be our fault. And one other thing about Afghanistan Istanbul process, we are next month, we will have a meeting on security at the deputy minister level, and then the foreign ministers will discuss how could we jointly face the challenges emanating from Afghanistan. It is not just a withdrawal, but we are neighbors to Afghanistan, and we all have ethnic ties with Afghanistan. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. With no other questions, and we are at the end of our time, so let's thank our outstanding panel today.
Okay, thank you.